Welcome to Kelly and Company, and on today's show, first impressions matter, and accessibility is often won or lost in those first few moments. Matisse Hamonilis is here to talk about how accessibility starts at hello. Adam Machaki Lancia is an international exhibited artist, visually impaired contemporary artist from Toronto. His hand-painted artworks reinterpret pop art using washes of diluted acrylic paints, creating compositions that reveal the layers of messaging and content that we are exposed to every day. We'll learn more about his work and process, and I hope through my words, I have painted for you a good show description ahead.
This is Kelly and Company.
Thanks for being with us. I'm Kelly MacDonald. Appreciate your time. When you join us on the program, remember to check out the podcast using your podcast platform of choice. Also, visit YouTube. We have our YouTube page. We'd appreciate if you subscribe to it and enjoy all the content that's posted out there on YouTube. Either way, please let us know how you feel about it. Maybe give us a rating and review when you subscribe to the podcast. Nazreen Abdul-Majid joining me on the program today. And Niz, I've been seeing those numbers of the pre-advanced voting for next Monday's election that happened over the Easter weekend, and they say over 0.4 million voted.
Wow.
Which is in Canada, they have 28 million eligible voters and registered voters, I guess would be the proper way to put that.
Yeah, I saw it right when it got announced, everybody ran for it. Yeah.
It went crazy. And on Friday alone, on Good Friday, 2 million people voted. I think it's obviously we know the importance of this election. There's been nothing but a lot of talk. The platforms now are out, so that's good for all of us. But so many people didn't even need that with all of the candidates or parties. They went out and voted over the weekend, and fedoras off to everyone for participating and getting involved, especially the young people. They really ran a good campaign working on the universities and colleges and making sure things were available and information was to them, Niz.
I know, and especially these days, I feel like a lot of people don't feel, motivated to vote right now, and with it's just been downhill. But I'm so glad that people are still motivated and not discouraged at all, and they're still fighting for a vote. Versus, they're like, I'm going to give up. I'm not going to do this anymore. It's whatever. My vote doesn't matter. No, it matters. Every vote matters. And I'm glad that even the young people are still motivated to do so.
I hate when people get that attitude, well, my vote will get canceled out by someone. Look, guys, vote. Every vote, as Niz just said, counts. That's what it's all about. And remember to vote for the change, the things you feel this country needs. Don't be fearful and vote just because, there's a panic on right now. But this is 4 years you're giving this party and individual. So please. And there's also, that doesn't preclude the things that go on in your area. You've got candidates around you in your town that you need to represent you well in Ottawa. So and look after your riding. So do the right things. That's what we want to hear, and we all are getting out there and doing what we can and steering this country, because it is a right that we have, and we should always take advantage of it. Registered nurse Travis Nightingale is back for his latest segment and wants to talk to us today about organ donation, because April is Organ Donation Awareness Month. Travis, this topic, it hits close to home for you. Your father-in-law received a double lung transplant in 2014. So with that spirit of appreciation, Travis is joining us to understand how come more people need to go out there and register. So Travis, welcome back to the show. And organ donation, I would imagine, can be quite emotional and often misunderstood. Could you start by telling us about the one thing you want people to know right off the bat?
I think probably the most important stat of it is kind of alarming that only 35% of eligible voters, eligible donors.
Sorry about that.
Got me talking about the election now. 35% of eligible donors are actually registered because Ontario, Canada as a whole, is an opt-in system instead of an opt-out system, like a lot of countries. So we are not by nature, you get your driver's license, your health card, you're not automatically a registered donor. A lot of Europe, the majority of Europe actually functions that way, where you have to actually say, no, I don't want to donate. Whereas in Ontario, we have to say, hey, I specifically do. And a lot of people, it's a hassle. And if you want to talk about voting, people don't want to get out and vote. People don't want to get out and, go through the effort to do that. But yeah, somebody every 3 days dies when they're waiting for organ or tissue donation. So it really does make it.
I remember as a kid, I used to get so frustrated when the commercials would come on and they'd talk about that part of your license to sign to be a donator. And I don't have a license. I'm too young and they don't let the blind people drive. And I'd get so frustrated because, of that. But then when you talk about opt-out system, I wonder about places throughout, and I don't know how many places, if there are any in North America, that kind of work based on that. And our reasonings as to maybe why a government wouldn't push that. Folks, this is important, or where that body of control would come from, where we would have opt out as opposed to opt in. What are your thoughts, and what do you know about that?
That is actually a very good question, and I don't actually know. I know Germany is one country right now that is pushing for an opt-in system. They are within Europe, one of the ones that is not opt-in. I know the Netherlands just changed in 2020 pretty recently that you're now automatically an organ donor unless you ask otherwise. Germany is on the cusp of changing it. Canada, not that I know of, and I don't know. There's no major religion when you think of like the 7 or 8, however you define it. Major religions, none of them are against organ donation, and the majority of them see it as a charitable act, which is kind of the foundation of a lot of religions. Even Jehovah's Witness isn't that they can't donate the organ, it is that the organ has to be devoid of the other person's blood before being donated to the host. So whoever, or the recipient, I don't know what that process looks like, but there's no religious objection to it. And I've said before as a nurse, like you don't need the organ or tissue when you're dead. And I know family are worried about keeping their body whole or something. There are some indigenous populations, but it's small local communities. It's not universal, where they believe that the donation, that the body has to be whole for their afterlife. But there's no real fundamental reason to not do it. So I really don't know.
Yeah. Nazreen, I wish we had the opt-out because of being blind. I would have felt wonderful to not have to worry about that. And as a child, even at 5-6 years old, I recognized the importance of it.
Yeah, absolutely. Can you share some myths about organ donation?
Well, one of the big myths is that there's a religious objection to it. That's probably one of the biggest ones that people have. Another one, I don't know if it's so much a myth, but it's difficult to understand. So one of the organ donation criteria is death after neurological death. So it's when you're actually brain dead. Now, brain death within medicine is a very, very specific term. So I think for the layperson, when they talk about brain death, they're thinking about somebody in a coma. And the term coma, that's a whole slippery slope, but the term coma is kind of a progressive, it's a scale. It's a scale of how you judge somebody's alertness. But for somebody to actually be brain dead, we say dead. Like you are not viable anymore. There is no way of surviving it. That's different than somebody being sedated or an altered level of consciousness. So if you've been determined brain death, you are being kept alive by so many types of life support. They're very, very complex patients because you are balancing all those things. It's incredible what the body does when it's alive to balance everything. So if somebody is determined dead, brain death, they are actually fully, completely dead. They will never recover from that. It's a very difficult process for the doctors to even declare that. So when that person is sitting there, they're on the ventilator and they look pink and warm and they look alive and they're actually declared brain dead, as horrible as that situation is for the family and how hard it is to accept, they are the perfect candidate, especially a young person. It's usually tragic accidents and it's heartbreaking, but one person can save 8 people's lives with organs and can enhance 75 other people's lives with tissue. And that's just one person. And I know a lot of people that, you've lost your loved one and this is a great gift to give back to another family. I still have a father-in-law right now because that happened. And I'm sure, and they're kind of hush-hush over, they keep things private. So I don't necessarily know where these organs came from. Who else got other organs, but lives were saved and enhanced just from one life that was tragically lost.
It really opens your eyes, huh, Kelly?
Oh, incredibly. I mean, early in the fall, I believe, a tragic incident happened here in London, and a young lady was killed. And I think the circumstance that they were able to do the same with her harvest, and as you said, Travis, within hours, days, that she helped so many people. And that's what I was thinking when someone is declared brain dead, that can instantly be done. And as you say, perfect. And I know it's probably a little much to say, or not going to go into detail, but the things that can happen while that person's in that state, and the immediacy of helping someone right then with a body organ, that's available and ready to go, and was recently functioning fine in someone else, is amazingly life-giving, isn't it?
It is an incredible thing to watch. And I actually, very, very early on in my nursing career, when I started in ICU in Windsor, I got to watch an organ harvesting. And so that they bring in teams. So when somebody is declared this, in this case, it was brain death. Somebody was declared brain dead and they were a donor. And so we have these phenomenal Trillium coordinators in Ontario. They're at most major hospitals. And if not, they're kind of mobile and they come in. And so the Trillium coordinator reaches out to all these hospitals in Ontario. Hey, we potentially have a match. And anybody who's interested, they bring their team in. So I think Ottawa was coming for a heart, and London's coming from kidneys and all this sort of thing, and the whole team comes in there. And then in the OR, it's just the home organ team takes everything out, and then the away team, I guess, they pack everything up, and then they go rush to that hospital, and they might be up 24, 48 hours. They get the call 2 o'clock in the morning. They go to Windsor, the surgeons harvest all the organs. They put it in their little cooler and they go rushing away back to Ottawa or wherever, and then they start the surgery to save a life. It's really cool to see how fast it happens. And every once in a while you see somebody's running, well, not running, but they're moving quickly with their little cooler, and there's an organ in it, and they're gonna go save somebody's life, or at least add a lot of time to their life.
Wow. Is there the things that people would be concerned about, and I know there's been a lot of negative press pertaining harvested parts that are put aside and not used, that there's a tremendous throughout the country, certain places, and again, I'm not saying intentionally wasting potentially amazing life-saving organs, but it's not, it happens.
It does, and there's a really strict criteria to receive an organ. And I think if you're dying of liver failure, I don't think you really care if the liver you're getting is not pristine. If it adds, 12 years, 10 years, 5 years, 6 months to your life, I really don't think that those people care. There actually is a small portion of, if you are HIV positive and you are dying of liver failure, you can actually receive an HIV positive liver. But for the most part, there's a very, very strict criteria to actually accept that. And so if you're sitting at home and you're saying, I need a new heart, and the surgeon looks at this heart and they're like, nope, there's a slight imperfection, this isn't great, you're not going to have a great quality of life, and they discard it, it's frustrating, because it could have still saved a life in some way, shape, or form, but they have such strict criteria that they can't intentionally put you at risk if they know there's going to be some complications. So it can be really frustrating, but the criteria to even remain on the donor list is incredibly strict.
When you think about what you just described in that circumstance, and we know there are obviously people sitting there in that sense, Travis, are we doing the right thing at having such a strict criteria? I mean, I can't put myself obviously in that person's position, but I wonder, you've been there, you guys have experienced, and what do you think the option would have been if they had looser and came and said, hey, we could put this in you, but the likelihood is maybe another 5 years for you with these lungs?
Yeah, and I think about this too, and I know the justification behind how strict the criteria is. Sure. For example, during COVID, I know there was a lot of pushback that people who didn't receive the COVID vaccine were not allowed to be on the donor list. And from the outside, that looks incredibly weird, but they don't see everything else that you have to do on the list. For example, my father-in-law, and this is before I was even in the picture, he had to go to physio 3 days a week prior to the organ donation. And then there's things like you have to be within a certain proximity, and you have to commit to a certain amount of aftercare and go on a certain amount of appointments. And he, my in-laws, they lived in London. They still live there, but they're having the transplant done in Toronto. And so they were going back and forth for appointments and doing these physio 3 days a week. And you're driving an hour and a half to do that each way. And it seems absolutely insane. It's just one of the things. And part of why they do that is because you have to demonstrate that commitment to the program and commitment to the plan, the last thing they want is to give a life-saving organ to somebody who doesn't take care of it. And so you think about lungs and there's a smoker, or liver and it's a drinker. You want to see that that person has that commitment to follow this plan, and you know that when they get that organ that they're not going to start smoking again or start drinking again. And so it sounds silly, but I believe it's probably more of a test of your commitment to the program and your ability to follow a certain prescribed, plan. And if you're able to do that, then you are qualified to get this organ, because otherwise there's going to be somebody else who wants it even worse than you do.
Yeah, and who misses out. And I guess if we had a system where it was more available, looser, restriction, or just simply more of us donating. And that being something, maybe we would take more of a chance with someone. Are they really committed? I don't know what that looks like. I just, it's too hard to fathom. Travis, you want to talk about how people can get themselves registered and those conversations that may be difficult with your family members so that they don't interfere if something should happen?
Of course, we should have started with that. When we're talking about 35% of people who are eligible are actually registered. So you go to beadonor.ca. That is, anyone can Google these days, but beadonor.ca is how you go and you can enter your information and you can register to be on the donor, or if you choose not to not be on the donor list. But the point of April would be to get you on that donor list, because I agree. So in 2022 to 2023, Ontario had 842 transplant operations. And again, if we're talking only 35% of people are eligible, that number could be significantly higher. And you're right, then probably criteria wouldn't need to be so strict, because we're not fighting over every little organ because there's so few out there.
And justifying. Is there anything tricky that you would find or think of going through it in those conversations with your partner, your parents, or your siblings, particularly about, hey, they could harvest dad's, and again, I know I'm sure there's certain criteria when it comes to age of parts that they're willing to, parts, I make it sound like a car we're putting together, organs that we're willing to utilize.
Yeah, so these were these wonderful Trillium coordinators come in, because they have all these conversations with family at the bedside when it's time to make that decision. But long beforehand, we can have those conversations with our loved ones. And I think the simplest thing to do is say, if you're talking to your mom, your dad, your sibling, your partner, whoever it is, about donating their organs, ask them what they would do if it meant saving their life or saving their loved one's life. So if you're talking to your partner and they don't want to donate, then you can say, well, what if I needed a heart? Would you want somebody to do everything they could to save my life? And the answer is always going to be yes, because when you put yourself in the seat of that loved one, you would do anything to save them. And so if you are dying or dead at that point, you don't need your heart, you don't need your lungs. If you could save a life, why not? If you could save 8 lives, why not?
Is there anything your father-in-law would say to us? Obviously endorsing, but is there something conversations that you have heard him say since, and just like, wow, for someone who's maybe considering being on the list, or that person out there waiting?
He is profoundly grateful. Shout out to my father-in-law, Will, out there. Will Dykstra, he got a second life, and he got a second chance for life. He was so dependent on oxygen prior to, wasting away. You couldn't eat without losing your breath, couldn't walk up the stairs, couldn't put a shirt on without being short of breath. And now he doesn't need oxygen. He can walk around, he can do a virtually normal life. And he is so truly grateful for it. And I know he still gives back so much. He just had his 11th birthday, if you will, just now in April. So a convenient month for him as well. And so I reached out to him just via text and just told him I'm glad he's here, and he's so proud he's here. And the whole family is just so grateful to have him, because he would not be here right now if it weren't for that.
That's beautiful. Wonderful.
And thank you for bringing this to us, Travis. Obviously, we've talked about it on the show, a really important topic. Every time we talk about it, you learn, I learned so much more, but mostly just understanding how important and how great this donation is. For anyone,
and how easy it is to do. You go to the website, and then we're all going to die inevitably anyways, and you close your eyes, whatever the case may be that led to that, and you never have to think of it again, but somebody else can live because of you.
Yeah, it's the greatest donation of your life.
Absolutely.
Thanks, Travis.
Thanks, guys.
Talk to you next month. I guess, folks, April has more to do with giving, more to do when it comes to giving life than just flowers, ladies and gentlemen out there. Thanks, Travis, for really reminding us that we all have the power to be someone's second chance. It really is important. It really is tremendous, and a conversation that I'm glad we're able to have. Nazreen, I really love when Travis said, go to the website, click, and it's done. And you don't think about it again, and it's not a concern of yours when you're gone.
It's super simple. Just do it.
Yeah, it's amazing, and we've talked to people who have shared how much they know. The person who they've received from, how much use, if you want to put it down to that, their body was, the things that were able to help others, and how grateful, as Travis mentioned, the high number there of people potentially that can benefit, and that is pretty tremendous. So if you have thoughts about this stuff, hey, reach out to us, folks, especially if you've experienced. We'd love to share that, especially here in April. Speaking of reaching us, speaking of all the things that go on social media, Nazreen, we've had some interesting conversations, which led you to put up a poll the other day.
Yeah, so yesterday it was our day, obviously, and we put up a poll asking you guys, which of these eco-friendly habits have you adopted? And the list is, the first one is using reusable bags, then biking, walking more, recycling diligently, or gardening. And the results came back with 50% for using reusable bags and 50% for recycling diligently. So out of these 4 options, Kelly, which one would you pick?
Number 1, definitely. Number 2, a little bit, definitely. The others are interesting because, well, again, I'm not a big walker like I used to be, and some of that's due to lesser vision and things being so close to me. So my walks are I'm not doing more walking than probably I used to, but I probably was never that person. And as someone who doesn't drive, it was always a bus rider, transit rider. So I think in that sense, of course, I'm contributing by being on a bus with a bunch of other people instead of in vehicles.
Yeah. Yeah, I would say for me, I have so many reusable bags. And I love that. I love that. Yeah. I think it's so important now because you guys, we recognize how expensive bags are these days. So that encourages us to reuse those bags, obviously.
I'm trying to think how long I've used reused bags. I mean, proper reusable bags. I don't mean, okay, I got from the store these bags, I'll keep them around. I mean, yes, I would always keep bags in the store around for garbage, right? Yeah. For my garbage cans, around my place. But when I'm talking about when the reusable bags came out, of course, Kelly thought, oh, this is cool. All right. And that was a great thing. And trying to remember and going to the store with my bags and getting them, low. So, I mean, I've used reusable bags for like a decade and a half at least.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel like everybody uses them. And it just reminded me of a funny story about last week. I was at the grocery store and I literally just went into the grocery store, had reusable bags in my cart, and I look at the lettuce for a minute. I look back at the cart, my reusable bags are gone.
Oh my goodness! There's a reusable bag thief.
Bags. It's just to that point where you really need those reusable bags now because they're like $2-3 at this point. So
yet people are saying I have too many, but yet here's somebody, I ain't got enough. I'll just take that ladies because, like you say, the expense on them.
So I've never had an experience where somebody stole reusable bags from me. It's just wild, but it encourages us at the end of the day. It's so good for our planet. It's just to keep us being mindful of this is what we need to do, and instead of just wasting plastic bags and keep buying and so it's nice. But I do end up walking more because I have a lot of things close to me, so it feels silly to get a ride from somebody to just drive me to the grocery store, whereas it's just close to me. So that's nice too.
Nazreen, as you said on the video that we showed on yesterday's show that you did, that's available up on the AMI website, YouTube page. The thing is, the utilization a little bit of everything helps and goes a long way. And I know our first thought in our head is, well, yeah, but so what? I don't do enough. It's not worth it. I don't have to worry about it. But I think, we just named off the little things that we do, the things we've been doing for a while. And I know we're full of the negative news of how we're bleaching the coral, how much plastic there is in the ocean, how polluted the air is. But if we were doing nothing, it would even be that much worse. Not that it's not bad. And we do need to continue doing more and more and more, and do what we can to preserve this earth that we're so lucky to have. But again, we can't defeat ourselves. It's sort of like, oh, well, you know what? I didn't really lose any weight last week. I flattened out. So, and you go off your diet or whatever, that you're working so hard, or skip a workout because, what's the point? Oh no, everything has its point to take care of us, the world. It's all good. And whatever you can do, I know I appreciate whatever anyone else can do, no matter how little or what. And again, you can sit there all you want saying, yeah, but then I do this, I do that, I leave the lights on. Okay. Well, work at trying not to do some of them.
Kelly, I keep reminding myself that I'm so grateful to live in a country where we have these opportunities to protect our planet.
Yes.
And whereas other countries, they're in bad situations, that they don't have these amazing opportunities that we can make just one thing. Baby steps make a difference. They do count. They do.
And you're right. There are so many places that, whether people had the will or not, they just aren't in the situation to be able to do some of the things. We talked about coal burning and some of those things. So awesome, folks. Whatever you could do, great. If you had something you did on Earth Day, Nisreen would love to hear about it. So simply reach out to us. Follow us on Instagram and Twitter at Kelly & Co. AMI. That's over on Instagram and Twitter. First impressions matter, and accessibility is often won or lost in those first few moments. Think about the last time that you left or felt a first impression. Matisse Hamonilis is here to talk about how accessibility simply starts at hello. Welcome back. And where are these first impressions happening, Matisse? I'm kind of curious, because these are really interesting to see where they're happening, where they're not.
Yeah, so there are a few areas where right off the bat, before even saying hello, you are starting to feel that sort of exclusionary component from accessibility. That can start from if you are going to an event, a conference, a networking event sort of thing, and the registration form doesn't ask for accessibility accommodations. Or food accommodations. Do you have any allergies or, any dietary restrictions that they should be aware of? Right off the bat, you start to feel like, am I going to be safe? Am I going to be welcomed there? Even though they say everybody is welcome. Another big thing is, let's say, yes, that accommodation is on that registration. You get to the event. Maybe you're a wheelchair user. Well, the event space is all stairs. There's no elevator. It's not really an accessible building itself. Or maybe you have sight loss or low vision, and they say, oh, sure, welcome, grab a seat over there. What the heck is over there? Right? So it's, they're trying to, it sounds friendly enough that, they're welcoming and they're trying to get you to where you need to be. But again, if somebody has a mobility device or low vision, what does over there really mean? And being understanding that we need to be more descriptive, and understanding that we can't make assumptions that everybody moves, sees, or processes space the same way that other people do, right? So it's this unintentional exclusionary practices that start to begin, that then sort of lead into the entire feeling of, I don't really belong here because I wasn't really thought of. So that unspoken signal of accessibility at hello is before you even actually say hello.
Wow. And it's interesting because so many of us over the years, and I'm glad so many people, like, we're having this conversation, but 6 years ago, 8 years ago, did we understand a lot of that? So many of us are just so used to it being that way.
Yeah, it's true. Like, one of the biggest things, think about job interviews where somebody always puts out their hand for a handshake. After the pandemic, people don't feel comfortable shaking hands anymore, right? It might be an elbow bump or just, hi, it's not lovely to meet you. I don't feel comfortable putting my hand out to shake your hand. I don't know if you've
Yeah.
sanitized, kind of thing, right? Or again, same during networking events where people are
Or shaking a
expecting.
hand and sanitizing, and people kind of giving you like, well, now I think there's less of
Yeah,
the, what do you think I have, son? I know
Yeah.
fist pump
yeah,
or elbow. The thing that scares me about that is it's bad enough trying to find someone's hand as a blind person. You're waving in the
Yeah.
air, try where are you know? Oh, nice to meet you, swinging your hand
yeah,
around. But to try to do a fist pump or an elbow,
yeah.
oh, I'm sorry.
The other thing as well is eye contact. We have sort of built a
Right.
society where we, particularly at networking events, job interviews, that sort of thing, when you're having a conversation with someone, they expect that you maintain eye contact to show engagement. But if you have neurodiversity, or perhaps you have sight loss, you don't know where to look, and it's just sort of that
Hmm.
awkward, like, why aren't they making eye contact with me? Are they not engaged, or do they not care? When instead that's not the case at all. Just not everyone makes eye contact, and not everyone processes body language the same way. So
But
what
does
they
it
may
ever
think
make
is,
people nervous, doesn't it? You know, that blind guy
yeah,
didn't like him, man.
Yeah.
He didn't make eye contact.
yeah,
Some people
yeah,
don't think twice about it. Like they're not aware of, you know,
exactly.
why is this person not giving me eye contact? Like they're not aware. They're just very, I don't want to say ignorant, but it's just
They don't
awareness
make the
matters.
connection.
Yeah,
They don't make that connection. They don't put two and two together, and that's unfortunate because
yeah,
they start thinking, okay, that's rude. Like
Could
they
cost you a
just looked
job.
away while I'm talking. Like you know what I mean? It's yeah,
yeah,
it's a big difference. And bringing back to shaking hands, that's tough. That's really tough
It is.
because right when you, for example, as a low vision person or a blind person, when somebody puts their hand out, like you're not aware that they're putting their hand out. And the
yeah,
first thought that comes to this person is like, what? That's so rude. Why aren't they
Yeah.
putting their
yeah,
hand out?
Yeah.
It's just about being aware, just being open minded, and
mhm.
it really makes a difference.
And there
It's
was a
true.
time that I felt I could judge when a hand was coming out. There was the appropriate moment, maybe even the sound, you know, you could hear an adjustment in sound of the person and that, because I could never really see enough to be able to do that. But I find since the pandemic, I'm not even sure if people want to shake hands.
Exactly, exactly. So
Hmm.
usually when I'm at a networking event or something like that where I'm meeting new people, I will say, "Do you want to shake hands, fist bump, elbow bump, or just, hi?" And just
Yeah.
simply
Yeah.
ask that question. And it takes
Yes.
that awkwardness out of it because they themselves also are sort of in a position post-pandemic to say, "Do I shake hands? Do you shake hands? What do we do?" Because we're all still now trying to navigate, I think, what does networking look like post-pandemic? And what does that engagement and those social cues and what used to be the norm, if you will, what does that look like now? And it's changed, and it's just sort of adapting and pivoting accordingly, which I think in turn will make it more accessible overall because we're not just assuming that a hand's in front of us to shake hands
Yes.
Yeah.
and asking those
But I
questions.
agree. I feel like times has changed. I
Mhm.
don't want to say back then, but not too long ago, there are times where if you have a visible disability, right when you meet a person, that's all you're going to talk. That's all they're going to talk about, ask questions about, and it just
Yeah,
becomes about your disability, not a connection, not anything else. It's
Not can
that.
you do the job?
Yeah,
yeah.
exactly. Like, yeah,
Yeah.
job interviews can be really tough when it comes to that.
Yeah, it's true. And I think the biggest part when it comes to this is also that people seem to think accessibility is just ramps or captions or large print,
Mm-hmm.
when in actuality, it includes tone and assumptions and respect. If somebody's
Mhm.
coming in for a job interview, they're not there to tell you and talk to you about their disability and their journey. They're there to tell you how well they can do the job and that they are the right candidate. So providing them with that same opportunity. But if you go in with those assumptions or preconceived notions of, oh, it's a wheelchair user or it's somebody who's using a guide dog or things like that, and that's all you want to ask, that's not really the place to do it. And that's sort of where you have to check your privilege and check your ignorance, if you will,
Yes.
in that matter, because that's not what they're there to do. They're not there to educate you on their disability. They're there to educate you on why they deserve the job.
Right. Well, and it is hard because we all get in that position of thinking like an
Mhm.
advocate, and many people more do not wish to
Yeah.
do that. They wish to go, they've got too many other things on their mind. What else about the digital aspects that we should look at when it comes to feeling welcome there?
For sure. So I think, when you're doing registration forms, like I already mentioned, if you are hosting an event, having those questions about accommodation. Hey, do you require accommodation? But also thinking in advance and thinking about maybe if somebody shows up late to an event and didn't register appropriately, what are some of the accessibility features that we can start doing right off the bat? So in the digital space, let's say it's a Zoom meeting or a MS Teams meeting, making sure that there are captions already in place, making sure that for anybody who's attending the meeting, they have the agenda, any PowerPoint or any materials in advance so they can review and create their questions or understand everything prior to, so they don't feel left behind, or if things aren't being described properly during the session, making sure that they actually have the content itself so they have a better understanding of what's going on. And I also think providing that information, like I said, the visual context, those visual cues, those visual descriptions of what might be shared in presentation decks, where usually I know in a lot of conferences, people will just sort of put an image on the screen and leave it for the audience to sort of chuckle because it's a joke. Well, great. I'm in the back of the room. I can't see the screen really well, and it's a really small picture. So what are we all laughing at? Right. So it's sort of being left out of that discord and then that humor, if you will, overall. By just simply describing what's happening, we are able to engage everybody, because people will think, well, it's just for those with sight loss, but really it's for everybody. You don't know where people are sitting in the room, or if they forgot their glasses that day or anything like that. It's ensuring that we are engaging everyone. And especially in the digital space, whenever we are in meetings, announcing who's talking before you start talking, especially if you're a male and there's 6 women on the call and we all have similar voices and you're like, I've got no clue.
I have no idea.
Yep. Right. Yep. It's just, we're going to assume it's Kate or Kim or whoever.
Well, and you try to address people to be part of a group, especially if you've been on this call or something for hours and you feel like such a fool because you say, Fred, no, I'm Alex. Oh, I'm sorry.
Exactly. And then that way you also feel, it allows everybody to feel more engaged, especially if the names aren't showing up at the bottom of their windows for whatever reason, or maybe they are using somebody else's account to register, to log into the session. And it's Sarah, not Jim, for example, who's on the call. But the name says Jim because they haven't renamed themselves accordingly. It just provides everybody that same access to information as to who's on the call. And if I want to address something that, Kelly, you've said, I can say, Kelly, that was a great point. To add to that, blah, 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 blah. Right. And it provides that opportunity to just be more connected in that meeting and not feel like I'm excluded because I can't necessarily see who I'm speaking with.
Yeah. Or I can't be bothered to remember anyone's name.
Exactly.
Okay. When we look at so much of the things that we could do and going over these things, where do you want to go now, in the sense of, is there a way of kind of telling people, go over these things, check this list off, this is the things that you want to do ahead of time?
Yeah, so we want to be proactive with accessibility and always understand, and I think I say this every time I'm on your show, it's progress, not perfection. It's about it's about the presence, it's about being there and being willing to ask those questions where, do we have any access needs that we should know about across the board in, again, registration forms, or even for town hall meetings if you're working internally and with your business and organization. What are the common things that we see that we can start to do right off the bat without even having to ask? So turning on captions. You may not have the budget to bring in a live captionist during these events, but utilizing tools from like MS PowerPoint or from Teams or even Zoom, turning on the captions there, so at least it's providing some sort of captions. I've attended conferences in the past where they don't offer captions in the breakout rooms. So what I do is I just turn on my Microsoft PowerPoint caption, so at least it provides something to the audience in case they need it, or just they're in the back of the room, my mic isn't properly working, they're able to still understand what's going on. Are they the greatest? No, we do call them craptions, right? Some words get mixed up here and there, but it's at least something. Asking people for pronouns, and if they feel comfortable sharing, great. If they don't, great. But just knowing that they can feel, if they do want to share and want to be open with that, they have that opportunity and they will be respected for their own pronouns. When I teach my first day of class, I have a button that says, hello, my pronouns are she, her, that I just wear. So my students, whether or not they want to share their own, they know that I'm open to having that conversation. Same with events, I always put my pronoun stickers on whenever I can. But also, we want to ensure that we are letting people know and feel like we are anticipating their needs versus it being an afterthought. That is how we build trust, and that is how trust builds a community around accessibility and what we're doing. So things like we mentioned already, introducing ourselves clearly and describing visual cues when needed, right? Asking open-ended questions. How can we support your participation today versus we're going to do this? Don't assume what people need, ask what they need.
Yeah.
And remembering that it's never accessibility being a one-size-fits-all, thing. It's an ongoing conversation in what we do, and we need to ask for feedback. And how do we improve? By asking the individuals who require those different accommodations.
Love that.
I remember the days going into college and having the first class and then having the discussion with the professor. Come on up to the front. What can I do to make this easier for you? Instead of some of the ways things are now, at least an email. If you have any accessible needs, please let me know. Or the days of showing up at something and just, well, we've got some accessible stuff. A few people we know have suggested these things. Yeah, but it's that, like you just said, not all fits and works for everyone.
Yeah.
Exactly.
How much repetition when it comes to this stuff for people to get used to this, to make this the nature of this is stuff that organizations, people doing conferences, if you're doing one, you do these things over and over again so you don't miss a step when it comes to these considerations.
Here's the thing, practice makes permanent. So the more we do it, the more consistently we are with asking these questions and doing it, it just becomes part of the routine. We're always going to ask because you can't assume who's going to be at these events, who's going to be on our meeting, our calls, that sort of thing. So we have to be consistent in how we communicate this information. And when we do, it just sort of becomes part of our regular workflow. It's not going to be did we ask this question about accessibility? Did we do this for accessibility and inclusion? But rather, did we not do this? Because it's part of our workflow. How did we forget that? It becomes part of the culture overall. And that way we are making it permanent by practicing it all the time. And as things change and adapt and evolve, we can always tweak that, but making sure it's always part of that conversation over and over and over again. There is no stopping it. It's rather just making it part of our workflow.
And it becomes contagious.
Awesome. Exactly.
Yeah. This is all just part of the inclusivity conversation that we have out there, which we all take part in every day, starting with those first impressions. Matisse, thank you, of course. This has been wonderful.
Thank you so much.
We'll talk next month. Folks, we need a favor here. We're looking for members of the disability community to join our AMI research panel. Marketing has told us, guys, we need to get more people involved. We want to hear from everybody. We want perspective. This research panel guides us with every decision that we make here at AMI, including programming, media consumption, and accessibility. Participants are compensated for all long-form studies. For more information and, of course, to sign up, go to ami.ca/panel. You can email our program at kellyco@ami.ca. We'd love to hear from you, get your comments, suggestions for the show. You can give us a call because we obviously love to hear your voice, and maybe we can play your message on the air if you have some feedback for us. 1-866-509-4545. That's 1-866-509-4545.
So beyond the filters, beyond the noise, beyond the screen, in a world full of curated perfection, this artist is peeling back the layers to reveal something real. Adam Machaki Lancia is an internationally exhibited contemporary artist from Toronto whose vision goes far beyond the canvas. Adam lives with a rare visual impairment and creates striking, emotionally rich paintings that explore how we connect with each other and how social media is shaping the way we see ourselves and the world. Adam, welcome.
Really happy to be here and talk to you guys.
We good.
Oh, wait.
Absolutely. Hi, Kelly. Hi, Nazreen. I'm so happy to be here. Thank you for having me. And let's talk about my artistry and getting right into with my eyesight.
Yeah, so let's start from the very beginning. When did you first realize that art would be a central part of your life?
It's strange for me. I would look at it like the quote of, if you love something, let it go. And if it comes back to you, it's meant to be. Art was something I just started doing at 2 years old. I was painting, I was drawing. My
Wow.
family saw something in me, and I just did it as a hobby. I never thought anything of it. And I always wanted to do other things in my life. I love sports. I loved other things to do. Art was never something I wanted to go forward with in life, but it was always pushed upon me. And I kind of fell in love with it later on in life. And it was just something through the years of just constantly doing. That's when the love started to happen. But growing up doing art was not something I really wanted to do as much, but I did it, I guess, to just please the family and as a hobby, just to do it.
And it grew on me.
Yeah, that's
It grew
gotta
on
be
me.
tough,
Yeah.
man, when you don't want to. And that's like basically you were accepted into the art gallery of Ontario's Young Artist Incubator at just 7 years old.
That's
I don't want to do that.
insane.
I don't want to do it. Well, what was that experience like? I don't want to do it. They took you kicking and screaming.
Yeah, to give you a funny story on that, like for every birthday, I would always give him for gifts art supplies. And as a kid, I'm like, I don't want these art supplies. But everyone said, like, this guy's an artist. He loves doing art, so we're always going to get him the art supplies. And it was kind of just like, well, I have the supplies with me. People know and think I like to do this, so I'll continue to do it. And again, as a kid, I wanted to do other things, but I've always had it there. I always did it. And like you said, at 7, going to the AGO, the Art Gallery of Ontario, to learn illustration. That was something in a stretch of my family having homelessness to raise my spirits. That's where we saw they were doing this. I don't know if they still do it now, but it was something at the time just to help young kids learn to draw and do illustration. And I really got to learn the fundamentals at that age. And I outgrew the program in 2 years. They said, we have nothing left for you. And again, this is for me, like having these talents and going about it, but yet not really want to do it. I think it's interesting how I still did it. And later on in life, it became a love.
Yeah, that's
I want
incredible because you think
everybody-
of the gifted athlete, that somebody who's really good at something, but I don't really like doing that. I want to do this. And then it
Yeah.
grows on a person. Sorry, Niz, go ahead.
I was going to say, I want people to really get the idea of your masterpieces. So can you just give us a description of one of your masterpieces?
It's hard for me to say like masterpiece for one work. I look at it, my whole life has been a journey of leading up to seeing the pieces like you have behind me here, leading up to finding my brand, my style, my aesthetic. And for me, it's just, I guess, a masterpiece. It doesn't exist because nothing's perfect. There's always the quote of an artist knows when to make their painting when it's finally finished. Because then when it's done, you're like, oh, I could have done this and that. So nothing's perfect, but it's just a matter of finding like what you think is the best version of that in the moment, because it is a snapshot of us as an artist to make the paintings in that time.
Wow.
Can you give us a
describe that one?
description of can you describe one of the paintings behind you?
Of course. So we got the two behind me here, and they are a balance between reality and social media, and the dance between human emotion and how we perceive people on social media and how we put ourselves out there online. And I do a bunch of little details, small designs and details to really show the amount of information we're constantly taking in. And for me, it's the chaos of life, how many things I'm trying to balance and how many things are coming at me every day, but kind of making it like the superpower of taking it all together and putting that chaos into something that's balanced and controlled.
Wow.
Love that.
Yeah, well, I
Thank
do
you.
too. What a way to describe.
Yeah. So your work has reached some incredible people. Let's put that out there. It reached Maroon 5, Lucy Hale, Tiffany Haddish, incredible people. What's it like to know that your art resonates at that level?
I think just on a human level, we all want to be noticed. We all want to be appreciated. And then to have something that you do that you love and you put so much time, effort, passion, money into, to have other people recognize it and validate it. Sure, in the end, I have to be happy with it. I have to love it. But then to have the outside sources love that, and validated, it's such a beautiful feeling, because it's almost like, yeah, I'm being noticed for my soul being put out there and my work being put out. So it's such a wonderful feeling. And even not to only have recognition that way and people seeing it, just in general, people seeing the artwork is beautiful, but then to have people buying the artwork, and over so many years, even through COVID and inflation, to still have people buying my artwork and spending the money that they are on mine, it's a beautiful feeling.
Well, I'd imagine there are those people who, that's when I know that I'm proficient, I'm good, because people are willing to spend money on it. But I'm assuming artists, everyone, because from my own work, we all sit back and say, hey, I feel comfortable here, I feel good here, or I feel inspired, and that's how I know to continue. A while ago you mentioned when someone says, well, I could have done this, I could have done that. What was the point where you felt you knew for you, before recognition anywhere else, hey man, I'm satisfied with it, or hey, I do have an ability, or hey, I've got to where, you know what, I'm pleased with my stuff? And did that have anything to do, if you would talk a bit about it, either way, your vision loss? Did it change your relationship with art, or just deepen it? Was it kind of coincided, or one nothing to do with the other?
Absolutely. Both of them, Nizreen, that I couldn't do art for a long time. Most of my 20s, I couldn't do art. I went to OCAD University and I completed that, got my Bachelor in Fine Arts, completely blind in my right eye and a quarter in my left. I was a C- student at OCAD, but I still did. I still went through with it, and I still graduated and really tried to find myself. After that, my eye problems were so severe, so bad, I had to basically, again, let go of arts because I couldn't do it at that time. And I guess in that time, it allowed perspective. It allowed time to just reprocess everything for that, and getting back into it when I was 28 years old, excuse me, that it was something that getting back into it with having that time, allowing to have the perspective, really allowed me to then find, okay, this is what I want to do. And this is where I kind of want to approach my art. And I move forward with it.
Amazing. Mm-hmm. A major theme in your work is the influence of social media on our sense of self. What sparked that focus for you?
The focus would be that my life feels like it's so integrated with social media. Everyone's right now feels that way, especially trying to run a business, this art business, and being on social media is so much to try and make connections, to make the social stuff to put out there, and constantly trying to engage to further myself. It feels like this becomes such a big part of my life that even the way I've connected with people and making my business grow has been because of social media. So there's that double-edged sword of, yeah, it can be bad if you use it the wrong way. It can take up so much of your time and it makes us feel so inadequate, because always you could see someone's living a better life, someone's doing this, someone's on vacation. It's so easy to fall into that trap. I've kind of used it as another superpower of, if you just use it for your means for your business, I think you can really help grow that and get connections that you would never be able to prior to social media, just like having to knock on people's doors. Now I can reach anyone in the world, make connections, and further my business that way. So it's good. I use it as good now, but there was a big portion of my life in my 20s. And I think for anyone who's younger, social media can be a detriment. It can make you really feel inadequate. It's just a way of trying to navigate it properly and finding, I guess, joy in it or happiness in it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I'm glad you picked a different perspective, because there's so many times that social media makes you feel overwhelmed, discouraged, and it becomes hard. But you opened yourself up, and your positivity really made a difference in your work, right?
And it still does. Like, again, it still does. Like, you can fall into that trap so easily. You can see like, oh, look at all these people doing better than me. It's just, I guess, a mindset change and switch that you have to do of like, no, people have their own journeys, their own lives. You got to go on yours and try and just use social media.
You know what? It's reality. Everybody does it. Everybody compares themselves. It's wrong. But at one point or another, like, we do compare ourselves low key about it. So, but at a certain point, you just really have to kind of step aside, take a break, and get a different perspective of it all, because everybody, as you said, everybody has their own journey, and that's the important part. I know we're running out of time, and I wish we can talk so much more, but what were some of your most meaningful moments or exhibitions as an artist?
Meaningful moments, one I could think of right off the top of my head would be that just overcoming my partial blindness. I could have just said, I'm not going to do this anymore. It's too difficult. Right. My eyesight's been terrible. Every day is an absolute battle with my eyesight. And that's very meaningful for me that I did it. I overcame it. I still live with it every day. It's still a huge problem in my life, but just to use it now as my superpower, it's my story, and it's how I navigate the world and my art. That means a lot to me that I didn't give up. I found a passion for art, and it doesn't matter what I had to overcome and what was going on, especially being a visual artist with bad vision. It's very difficult, but I've just found a way, and that's very meaningful for me. And for my next exhibition, I actually have a show coming up Saturday, May 3rd, 7 p.m. It's on Dundas Street West, 1357 Dundas Street West at Atelier Next Door Gallery. And there's a lot of paintings people will be able to see of mine and some new stuff I haven't posted yet.
Amazing. Well, amazing. That, like, your work is so beautiful. I looked at all of your work, and I love how there's a theme to all of them, and there's a connection to all of them. It's absolutely incredible, and I wish we can. I want you to come back on the show.
Please,
sure.
Let's do it.
Right,
yes, absolutely.
Yeah, we need to talk more. We need more time.
Yes.
But thank you so much, Adam. Thank you for joining us.
Of course. Thank you, guys. I really appreciate shedding this spotlight. It's important, and thank you.
Thanks, Adam.
That was contemporary artist Adam Machaki Lancia, reminding us that even in a world overwhelmed by images, there's still room for this true connection, emotion, and meaning. You can explore Adam's work online on Instagram and TikTok at adamlancia.art and follow his journey as he continues to redefine what it means to see the world through art.
And Nazreen and I will be back with you tomorrow on the program. On that edition, where was the last place you heard live music? A church, a concert hall, somewhere outdoors? Christine Malik is intrigued by the difference in sound, mood, and experience of hearing live music, depending where we are in space. Plus, if your kitchen feels more cluttered than functional, take some notes, because culinary expert Mary Mammoliti is here with 5 simple steps to bring back order and flow to your cooking process. All on the next edition. We're waving at you.
Thanks for tuning in to Kelly and Company. Follow us on all social media, and don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel for more.